What's up everybody, Phantom here, and today's video you're going to see some gameplay of Ghost Recon Wildlands beta in the background. I was lucky enough to get a code to the beta. I'm sure a lot of people are in the beta, but some people didn't get into it, so I'm actually pretty happy that I actually am going to be able to bring you some gameplay. What I want to talk about though is the PC version of this game, and I am going to do like a first impressions. I'm not going to do a review because it's not the full game. 1, 2, there's some things that might be fixed before the full game comes out that are having problems right now, and that's what I'm going to talk about right now. I'm hoping that they just haven't fully optimized it for PC. While it runs well, it doesn't run at the level I expected, especially for my PC. Now, just a little background. My PC is not like some super high-end Titan X with a fucking 5960X or whatever high-end Intel CPU you can think of. It is a i5 4690K, which is a very decent processor. That would be like mid-tier gaming for me. It's overclocked to 4.4 gigahertz, and I'm running a GTX 960 4GB. So my graphics card is pretty much dead smack in the middle. It's for 1080p. I do not try to run games any higher than 1080p because the card just wouldn't be able to handle it, at least not at 60 frames per second. The problem I have with this game is that I can't hit 1080p 60 frames per second at any preset. Okay, I run the medium preset because it gives me as much as possible while staying around 45 FPS. But even low and low preset, the shadows don't even pop up. Like, you have no shadows for your characters when you're on the low preset, which is ridiculous. And even that, I can't get 1080p 60 frames per second. And the fact is that medium, getting 45 frames per second when nothing's happening. Granted, nothing's happening. 45 frames per second drops to about 40 if, you know, things are on screen and there's explosions and shit. But even if I drop it to low, the highest I got was 52, 53 frames per second. On a i5 4690K, which is a quad core, Intel quad core, that's overclocked to 4.4 gigahertz, which is still at overclocked better than the most recent i5 that isn't overclocked. So, like, I'm still getting great performance out of my CPU. My graphics card is meant for 1080p gaming. It's a GTX 960. That goes toe-to-toe with a 1050 Ti. I'm not going to say it's the greatest card, but it should be able to do 1080p 60 frames per second, especially at medium preset. It would be one thing if I'm only getting 40 frames per second at high or ultra. But this is the medium preset, and I'm only getting 45 frames per second. The only saving grace for this game, and this is what I really like about this game, is that it has a frame rate limit. If you turn VSync off, which most people use because they get more than 60 frames per second, so it's screen tears when it goes above 60 frames per second, because most people have a 60 hertz monitor. Well, you turn that off because I'm not hitting 60, and then you can select the frame rate limit, and I can limit it to 40 frames per second, which means it will not give me any more than 40 frames per second, which, while it doesn't run as smooth as 60 frames per second, it runs way smoother than having it unlocked and having it fluctuate between 40 and as high as like 48 frames per second. And those are the times that you really notice it. You even get this on console when a big explosion happens on Fallout 4. When an explosion happens, happens, you feel it like jerk, like everything seems to like freeze up for a split second and it pops back. That is what happens when the frame rate fluctuates, and that's what I wanted to stop. So I set it for 40. You can set it for 30, 40, 50, 60, 90, and 120 frames per second, which is great. But the fact that I'm not even getting 60 frames per second at the medium preset at 1080p, not 1440, not 4K, 1080p, and I can't hit 60 frames per second with easily, at the time when it was built a year and a half ago, a $700 PC, $750 PC. So like, it makes me a little annoyed, but I think it's just they didn't optimize it yet for PC. I mean, they got it running, and the best of the best cards can run it at 1080p 60 frames per second, or even higher resolution. But I think they still have a little more optimization to go, and that's what I'm hoping for, because the fact that this system that I have can't run at 1080p 60 frames per second, even on low settings. Like, I only gain like 5 frames going from medium to low, and low doesn't even have shadows. So like, something tells me that there's still optimization they have to do, and that's what I'm hoping for. Because if I get this game, and I'm gonna get it for PC because I feel like this is a game that should be played on PC. I mean, if all you got is a console, go ahead, you know, I'm not gonna tell you not to. I have a console too, but when it comes to a game like this where it still looks pretty at medium preset, I'm really hoping I can at least do high preset at 1080p 60 frames per second, and they just need it. They still have that 2 months left to like really optimize it for PC. Otherwise, this is going to be a semi-disaster, because my CPU is not the problem. The only problem I can see, there's 2 problems in my computer that might be causing a problem. The high preset, when I ran it, textures were popping, so maybe it's the fact that I don't have an SSD, so that's a good chance for that. And then my graphics card. I really don't believe that a 960 should be, after what, a year and a half going on 2 years, is already useless for 1080p gaming. Sure, can't do 1440p, can't do 4K, fine. I don't have a 1440p monitor anyways. I have a 1080p, so I want to play at 1080p. It should be able to do that. But if it doesn't work at launch, like if I can get high preset 1080p at like 50 frames per second, I'll be happy. But if I can't even do that, and I'm still doing 40 frames per second at 1080p medium preset at the launch of the game, it's gonna kind of annoy me, because like, there's nothing special about this game. Alright, like, sure, it's a pretty game, but are you really gonna sit there and tell me that it runs worse than Doom? Like, I can run 1080p at like 80 frames per second on Doom, ultra settings, except for the nightmare settings. Like, I can't do that because I'm not allowed to, because I don't have 6 gigabytes of RAM. But you're telling me I have everything else maxed out on Doom at 1080p and it runs at 80 frames per second, but your game barely gets over 40 at the medium preset at 1080p? Something tells me they have a lot more optimization that they were doing. They just wanted to get it playable for the beta. So that's what I'm hoping for. But that's all I got for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.